Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. There are people who spend their entire lives searching for a doorway into the afterlife. And then there are those who simply close their eyes and step through it. Edgar Cayce, a humble man from Kentucky, was not a priest, not a guru, not some mystic chasing ghosts. He was a photographer, a churchgoer, a quiet man. But when he entered a deep trance, a kind of hypnotic sleep, something extraordinary happened. A voice began to speak through him, but it wasn't his. It wasn't the voice of ego. It didn't speak with logic or human hesitation. It came from a place beyond time and space, where the memory of the soul and the nature of the universe are one. That's why people called him the sleeping prophet. To me, Cayce's story is like the first crack in the concrete wall of materialism, a sacred reminder that perhaps what we call normal consciousness is just a shallow surface, and beneath it lies a vast spiritual ocean most of us never dare to dive into. Cayce didn't preach. He didn't perform on stage. He simply spoke while asleep, and in that strange, otherworldly sleep, he described things even modern mystics still bow their heads to. The journey of the soul after death, a spiritual map of planetary dimensions, the Akashic Records, a cosmic library of every thought and deed, and the deeper reason why souls reincarnate at all. To me, Cayce wasn't just a prophet. He was a gateway, a living symbol of a power that might exist in all of us. If only we became still enough, real enough, and brave enough to look within. Sometimes, truth doesn't appear when our eyes are wide open. It comes when we close them and listen to something we forgot long ago. Maybe that something is your own soul, whispering. The soul after death, the journey begins. We've often been taught that death is the end, that when the heart stops beating, everything, memories, emotions, identity, simply vanishes into the void. But through hundreds of deep trance sessions, Edgar Cayce shared something entirely different. He claimed that the soul does not die. It simply transitions into a more subtle dimension of existence. When the soul leaves the body, its first experience is not pain, but relief, a gentle release, as if you've finally taken off a tight garment you've worn for far too long. The body, with all its burdens, illnesses, emotions, and expectations, was only a temporary shell. And when it falls away, the soul is not lost. On the contrary, it awakens. To me, that image is more beautiful than any concept of heaven ever described, because it doesn't speak of reward or punishment, but of a lightness, a stillness, as clear as a calm autumn moon. From this perspective, death loses its terror. It is not a cliff. It is a threshold, a doorway that doesn't open through force or faith, but gently yields to letting go. Cayce described how, in the moments after death, a soul may still observe the room it left, see its loved ones, and even feel their emotions, as if all separation has suddenly dissolved. There is no elevator to heaven, no celestial judgment scale, only a movement so natural, like a dream shifting into another frequency. I remember reading one account where Cayce spoke of a child's soul departing early in life. When the soul left the body, it didn't rise because it had wings. It rose because there was nothing left holding it down. It floated like morning mist, and in the distance there was a soft light welcoming a home. Not the light of fire, but the light of remembering. I was never abandoned. To me, that changes everything. Death is no longer a period. It's a long, quiet comma, leading into a deeper, far more beautiful sentence, one we were always meant to read. The layers of consciousness, the symbolic planetary system. When a soul leaves the body, it doesn't float straight up to some heaven as many imagine. There is no golden staircase, no pearly gates. Instead, the soul begins an inner journey, moving through layers of consciousness, through lessons, and living symbols that mirror its own evolution. Edgar Cayce described these layers as a kind of spiritual planetary system. Each planet isn't a physical place, but a state of vibration, a reflection of what the soul needs to remember, integrate, or heal. 1. Mercury, the realm of intellect. Here, the soul confronts its relationship with knowledge, not just what it knows, but how it has used that knowledge. To manipulate? To serve? To understand? Mercury is the mirror of the mind's purity or distortion. 2. Venus, the realm of love. Not romantic love, but love as a state of being. Here the soul revisits moments of compassion, softness, forgiveness, or lack thereof. It measures how open its heart truly is. 3. Mars, the realm of conflict. The domain of fire, ego, and personal struggle. The soul is shown the battles it fought, both the ones where it protected itself and the ones where it hurt itself out of fear or pride. 4. Jupiter, the realm of higher wisdom. Not personal knowledge, but soul-level awareness. Here, the soul begins to see the full picture. Why things happened, why pain was necessary. It begins to touch that rare state, perspective without judgment. 5. Saturn, the realm of karma. A deep, quiet place. Here, the soul is not judged by any external being. It simply faces all it has created, like watching ripples return from every stone it ever threw. Cause and effect, not as theory, but as lived emotion. 6. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, the realms of the superconscious. These are vast, quiet states. Here, the soul begins to dissolve its personal identity. There is no I or they, only a shimmering awareness that belongs to everything. Some souls only glimpse this. Some have dwelled here before and bring back fragments we call psychic gifts or divine memory. To me, Cayce's planetary map doesn't resemble a solar system. It feels more like an inward spiral, not flying outward but falling inward. Not a race upward, but a surrender into truth. Each layer is not a trial to pass, but a mirror, reflecting what the soul still carries, still fears, still longs to become. If the soul is a traveler, then these planets are its resting stations. Between dreaming and awakening, they're not distant, they're woven into each other. They don't move up or down. They unfold according to the depth of consciousness. And only when the soul is ready to see itself without fear does it pass through into the quieter, vaster, more real realms of light. The Akashic Records, the library of the soul. If there were a place that recorded every moment you've ever lived, every thought, every emotion, every whisper you never spoke aloud, they're not physical at all. They're a living field of information woven into the very fabric of the universe. Imagine a vast, invisible library where every soul has a book of its own. There's no gatekeeper with a gavel, no angels or demons passing judgment. There's only truth, but not truth for the sake of condemnation, truth for the sake of understanding. Cayce explained that after death, the soul is invited to read this book, not as punishment, but as an act of deep witnessing, a return to full awareness. You don't just see what you've done. You feel it, as if you were the one on the receiving end. You feel the joy you created, and also the pain you caused, whether intentionally or not. To me, this is one of the most compassionate spiritual truths ever told, because it gives responsibility to the soul, but not shame. There's no judge, there's no eternal sentence. There is only an invitation to look, without hiding, without explaining, and to learn. And from that place, the soul decides, where do I go next? What did I come to understand? What lesson is still incomplete? And you know what? The soul doesn't always choose the easy road. Many souls ask to return, to be reborn into hardship, into difficulty, into darkness, not to be punished, but to complete what was left undone. So the next time you see someone suffering, struggling, lost in addiction or despair, don't assume they've failed at reincarnation. It's possible they're the bravest soul among us. The one who read their Akashic record and said, I'm not done yet. Give me another chance. Reincarnation and the soul's choice. If there's one idea that sets Edgar Cayce's teachings apart from most religious beliefs, it's this. Reincarnation is not a punishment. It is a conscious choice made at a high level of spiritual awareness, where the soul, with deep clarity, decides, I will return to learn more, to heal what remains unfinished. Before reincarnating, the soul doesn't choose randomly. It chooses with intention. The family, the culture, the time in history, the nation, the gender, the body, and most importantly, the lesson. Some souls choose to be born into wealth, but emotional coldness. Some choose weak bodies to learn humility. Some pick chaotic families to learn how to love and forgive themselves. Not to pay a debt, but to evolve. To me, this idea is not only profound, it's liberating. It transforms our perspective from, why is this happening to me? To, I chose this because my soul is strong enough to grow from it. Cayce taught that suffering, when seen from the soul's perspective, is not a tragedy. It is a sacred doorway into wisdom. A kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books, but from living fully, breaking open, falling hard, loving fiercely, and rising again with deeper compassion. That's why sometimes we meet people who are born into great hardship, yet they carry a strange, quiet depth. They're not the unlucky ones of the universe. They are pilgrims, souls who chose the tougher classroom to finish a sacred curriculum. And from that choice, the most powerful lessons are born. Unconditional love, the release of ego, gratitude in the face of loss, and light, born straight out of the darkness. The dreamlike state after death and the soul's awakening. Not every soul becomes fully aware the moment it leaves the body. In fact, many souls don't even realize they've died. They still feel themselves existing. They still think, feel, even try to interact with the physical world. But there's one thing that confuses them. No one hears them. No one sees them. No one responds. Cayce described this stage as a kind of dream without a body. A twilight zone between life and the beyond. A place where consciousness is still too heavy to let go, and too unclear to move on. This often happens to souls who died suddenly, or those still deeply attached to family, possessions, resentment, or unfinished love. To them, death doesn't feel like a return. It feels like a disorienting break, a fading echo they try to chase. I once heard someone say, what's scarier than death is not knowing you've died. And I think that's exactly the state Cayce was describing. A soul wandering between two worlds, confused, clinging, unsure what's real. But then at some point, maybe after days, weeks, or even longer, the soul begins to awaken. And when that moment comes, something incredibly gentle happens. Loved ones who have passed before appear, not with words, but with a deep inner recognition. I'm home. There is no blame, no judgment, only a silent welcome, made of pure love. From there, the soul enters what Cayce called the life review, but not like watching a movie of your past, more like reliving your life from inside others. If you hurt someone, you'll feel their pain. If you brought someone joy, you'll feel their warmth. You don't just remember, you become. To me, that's neither heaven nor hell. It's simply truth unveiled. And truth, while it may sting, is the first breath of real healing, awakening, forgiveness, and evolution. After the soul awakens from its dreamlike state, after it's welcomed by departed loved ones, after it relives each moment of its life, not as memory, but as pure emotional truth, that's when a deeper kind of awakening begins. The soul doesn't just remember. It feels everything again, but this time from the other side. If you ever cause someone pain, you will feel that pain just as they did. If you ever gave someone love, you'll feel the warmth just as they received it. There's no justifying, no hiding, only the unfiltered truth, flowing like a river that cannot be stopped. But here's what's extraordinary. There's no one judging you, no being keeping score, no God on a throne weighing your good and bad. There's only you, your soul, in its clearest, most luminous state, witnessing itself without the filters of ego or denial. And it's in this witnessing that true forgiveness begins. Not from anyone else, but from within. You forgive the mistakes you made, You forgive the times you didn't know how to love. You forgive, and you also learn how to ask for forgiveness. To me, this is the purest expression of soul evolution. It's not about learning something new, but about letting go of everything that is false, everything that once kept you closed. And from that soft, raw honesty, the soul shifts into a higher vibration. Cayce said, "There is no heaven or hell in the traditional sense. There is only the vibrational state the soul carries within itself. Souls still bound by fear, anger, bitterness, control, do not rise higher, not because they are punished, but because their frequency can't yet rise into the light. But souls who have touched love, compassion, surrender, peace, they begin to feel lighter, brighter. They move forward, not with wings, but with resonance to light. Union, when the soul becomes love. Not every soul reincarnates forever. Not every spirit continues the endless cycle of learning, falling, healing, and returning. There are souls who, after countless lifetimes, after rising and falling again and again, choose to stop, not out of exhaustion, but because they have remembered who they truly are. According to Edgar Cayce, when a soul has truly learned, understood, forgiven, and loved, it is no longer bound by karma. It no longer needs to reincarnate in order to repay or learn. But it doesn't disappear. It doesn't vanish into nothingness. It becomes a guiding light, a part of the universal radiance, no longer an individual, but never lost. It becomes a pure vibration, a still, vast intelligence, a quiet and unconditional state of love. I've always believed that the soul's ultimate goal is not perfection, not to become some flawless being, but simply to remember a truth so simple we keep forgetting it. Your true nature is love. Love that asks for nothing. Love that needs no return. Love that exists simply because it is. When a soul reaches this place, it no longer sees others as higher or lower. It no longer judges. It no longer rushes to fix or control. It simply exists like sunlight, quiet and present, so that those still lost in the dark can find their way home. And I believe that someday, whether soon or after many lifetimes, every soul will arrive here, not to become something more, but to return to what it always was, a spark of light, carrying the eternal memory of unconditional love. And when that happens, this journey we've called life won't feel like a battlefield anymore, but like a gentle remembering of who we've always been and why we once left the light, only to return with a fuller, softer, more awakened heart.